Hey everyone. I was going to do an intro here, but apparently little Miss Clementine has decided that it's her time to debut, which is very topical because we're going to be talking about some publishing news, very hot publishing news currently that deals with a debut author. So she must have a sense about podcasting. This is Clementine. She's a new dog to me. I've had her right about 2 months now. She is a rescue and came through a neat organization that rescues dogs in northern Arizona. And shortly after she got to the shelter from the reservation where she had been very pregnant, she gave birth to 4 puppies who are also up for adoption. I think a couple of them have been adopted. But anyway, she's super cute. She's proving to be a great writer's dog, which is always a plus. So yeah, this is Clementine, otherwise known as Tiny. Sometimes I call her Tiny Bubbles. If you're Gen X and you remember the musical artist Don Ho, then if you know, you know. So anyway, so speaking of debuts, first of all, hi. It's been a long time since I have checked into the channel. There's been a lot going on multiple fronts. And so again, I just thought, now that I'm waiting for the vet, let me go ahead and just do a check-in video and talk about some things that have been on my mind. I mean, it is summer, so publishing pretty much shuts down in the summer anyway. So, I haven't been following a whole lot of publishing news. I've been working on a manuscript. I haven't been doing a lot with my own little publishing venture, Altitude Press. I don't have plans this year for another flash fiction anthology because I really do need to spend this fall really trying to finish up this manuscript, which is sort of upmarket literary fiction is how I'm thinking of it now. And I'm about a third of the way through. I want to at least have a solid draft by the end of fall semester because my teaching schedule is also ramping up a little bit. So I won't be working on, wow, you are really wanting to take center stage, Missy. Well, you just have at it. Let's hear what you have to say. So I really am going to be focusing on my own writing instead of working with other authors at this point. Anyway, that's kind of an update about me. There's been a lot of animal stuff, new dog. I got a new horse. So now I have two wonderful mares, also rescues. And I just say that just because it's a different situation. And I've actually never rescued a horse until last fall, coming up on a year. And when I got my first one, Bella, and she was wonderful. Another one came across the transom, so I grabbed her, and that's it. Stopping it too, but they're wonderful little mares, an Arabian and a half Arabian. So they've been lovely, and it's been kind of a lot of work getting them both sort of up to better health and a better situation and all of that. But other than that, again, the writing has been happening and work has been happening and all sorts of stuff. Like many of you, we have really been under it with the weather. It's been so hot and just this oppressive heat that's kind of made doing a lot of outside stuff difficult during the day. And so I'm pretty much up, between 5 and 6 every morning, doing chores, getting the morning outdoor stuff done, and then coming in. And it has been kind of good for the writing, although, the heat, people. I don't know which I'm complaining more about now, the winter freeze or the summer heat, but we kind of deal with both and life moves on. But yeah, publishing has kind of been shut down for the summer. It typically does. I'm talking about traditional publishing. Very common for the industry to just sort of disappear a little bit. So it's a hard time if you are submitting, if you're querying agents, it's a really hard time for a manuscript to be on submission. Again, this sort of ties into the publishing news that I'm going to be talking about. Just because a lot of people are just out of the office, out of work mode, in summer mode. And then, as we come into September, typically what I've seen from my perspective as an author back in the day with traditional publishing was typically around September is when we start to see publishing kind of the gears start kicking in again. So that's kind of neat. So anyway, some of you may have heard, and I'm not going to focus the whole episode on this, but just wanted to mention it and maybe share your thoughts in the comments because it's so timely with the situation we find ourselves as writers with AI, which I think many writers consider to be sort of the big bad wolf, right? And others use it without even thinking about it. Others are maybe somewhere in the middle. I suspect a large majority of writers are somewhere in that vast middle between the polarity of either just, I'll never use AI, I'm a total purist, and, well, it's kind of hard to avoid it because anything you put into, say, a Google search, unless you do the little, I think it's you do minus AI, and then it apparently won't give you AI generated results, but AI is going to generate results for you. So anyway, the big news, some of the big news that's happening is this crime novel that was going to be published by Minotaur, which is owned by Macmillan, which was my publisher for 100 Days, which turns 10 years old this month, I think, right around now during this summer. I can't even believe that 10 years have passed since 100 Days came out, but alas. Anyway, so Minotaur, owned by Macmillan, ended up acquiring this crime manuscript, and apparently, reportedly, from trustworthy sources within publishing, paid over $2 million for this manuscript. Not only that, but this is a debut author. I don't know exactly how to pronounce his last name. I believe it's Falade. It's either Falade or Falade. And his agent was saying, when they first went on submission, the agent, I guess, thought this is going to be an amazing manuscript. And then they were seeing that feedback from editors. If you don't know, going out on submission means your agent takes your manuscript, which has hopefully been really honed and is really clean and looking really strong, and sends it out to their first list of editors at publishing houses to see if they can get any bites. Any author who is on submission right now or who has been on submission knows that it can be a very fraught time. It can be really, really stressful. But apparently this manuscript went out, and I think it's called Call Me, I'll Hide the Body. It's a crime novel. Apparently it went out and was getting great feedback. Ended up in a 14-way auction. So I've been in a situation where my novel 100 Days ended up in what's called a preempt. So it was before it goes to auction. Someone wants it bad enough where they just say, no, I'm going to do what it takes to get this manuscript. And that was super exciting. So I never actually went to auction with that book, or the manuscript never went to auction. But this manuscript by this debut author did a 14-way auction, which means he had 14 different editors, 14 different publishing houses, essentially, wanting this manuscript and willing to go up against each other to get it. So Minotaur won, paid, I'm hearing anywhere from just over 2 million to 2.5 million. Don't know the exact number. I don't know that that's been put out there. So they got it. And then at some point, I guess at some point during the submission process, an editor who saw the manuscript, and I'm paraphrasing and I may not be totally accurate with my paraphrase, but this is a pretty easy piece of news to look up. So if you're curious about it, just put it in search. You'll be able to find information about this. Early on in the submission process, I guess, or somewhere in the submission process, an editor raised concerns that AI might have been used to create this manuscript. And apparently the author addressed the concerns, said absolutely not, had a detailed, I'm guessing a detailed response to that. So then it stays out on sub, ends up in that 14-way auction. Minotaur ends up acquiring the manuscript for that incredible sum. Really, I mean, anything million is an incredible sum in publishing for an author, especially a debut. And then apparently at some point, the editor, someone key in the development of this project raised concerns again, apparently, and I'm not seeing, so far in the articles that I've read about this, I'm not seeing what the specific flags were, what the specific concerns were. Of course, at this point, as I'm learning about this, my brain is going, okay, so it was out on sub, all these editors saw it. Apparently one raised concerns that were explained by the author, and I'm guessing the author's agent. And then it ended up in this 14-way auction. No one else willing to put up that kind of money, or apparently Minotaur they were the only ones willing to put up that kind of money, but I'm guessing the other offers weren't peanuts, So no other editor, no other publishing house willing to put up that kind of money raised concerns again, and then it was acquired, and then the concerns were raised again. So what I'm seeing is at that point, the author's story changed. There were enough inconsistencies, I guess, in what the author was saying to respond to this sort of renewed concern about AI use that the publisher pulled the manuscript. The deal was canceled. And I just think it's just stunning. And it puts us right in 2026 when, again, AI, to use, to not use, to accept that it's here to stay and it's not going anywhere, to be a purist, to be a complete adopter. There's no early adopting AI anymore. It's here. It's quite developed. I don't know that it's quite developed compared to what it will be. These conversations are ongoing, but it's quite developed compared to what it was a year ago, 2 years ago. I saw an AI image, an AI generated image that was clearly created probably 4 years ago, 3 years ago. And it was so awful and it was so silly, really, unintentionally silly. And I thought, wow, we have come a long, long way in images, in writing, in videos. I mean, it's a whole nother conversation, I guess, there. But I just think this case, this bit of news, this canceled contract, and by the way, I think this author is going to do great with this book regardless. I think this author could probably throw that book up on KDP and self-publish it, KDP Amazon, for those of you not familiar with that, and earn just as much money, if not more, because all of this free publicity, right? So that whole idea of there's no such thing as bad publicity, I don't know that I believe that, but in a case like this, just out of curiosity, I would read the manuscript because I would want to know, A, is it really as good as people were claiming? Is this the kind of, I'd want to know what is this manuscript that gets a $2+ million deal? I do not write crime fiction, but still it's fascinating. And also just, would I spot what I would think was AI? Because of course there's no really solid way to prove it yet. And I deal with this in my work as a writing instructor. There are times when I just know that a student submission, an essay, for example, was written, if not completely by AI, then mostly AI written. You can just tell there are certain patterns, certain structures. It's really, if you do this for a living, this is my non-creative writing work, by the way, because I will always teach some sort of composition, I'm sure, because it's just something I've done for over 20 years now, and I love it. And that's just online. Before then, I was doing it completely in person. So, it's just really easy to submit these AI essays, and tons of students do it. And it's really hard as an instructor or as an editor, as an agent, to then turn around and say, I know this is AI and I can prove it. Because you really can't. You can say, well, I ran it through an AI generator. There's actually issues about that too. That's pretty controversial because then you're basically giving AI someone else's writing. So that's, again, a whole nother issue with AI. But you really, really can't prove it. So I would be curious in my position as someone who sees a lot of AI generated writing that's not supposed to be AI generated. If I would read this and go, oh yeah, that's absolutely. If I was the editor, I would be raising my hand and saying, absolutely, this is AI. So, and of course AI can be used incrementally. It's not just like something is written completely by AI or it's completely human written. And this is, again, where we get into that big gray area. And I'd be curious, leave a comment if this is interesting to you, if you have thoughts on this. Where would you say at this point in the history of artificial intelligence that we are currently inhabiting, where do you fall on that spectrum? Do you consider yourself a purist? By the way, some of the strongest purists when it comes to AI use that I have ever known have been my former STEM students at a well-known university, aeronautical university. And I had many of them come up to me and just basically say, you don't even have to worry about it with me. I hate AI. I mean, hate is a strong word, but that is the word I would hear students use. And I thought that was interesting. These are STEM students. These aren't writing students, right? So anyway, tell me where you fall on that spectrum. I'm curious about that. That's kind of the news. This is sort of my not quite fall, but late summer re-entry into visiting this channel. So I would love to hear what you think about that. And tell me what you're working on. If you've been able to work this summer, I find summer a really hard time to work on a manuscript myself because, again, the workload tends to lighten a bit as far as the teaching workload for me. It doesn't lighten completely. I tend to teach year round, but it lightens enough so that there's other stuff. And then with the horses and with the mornings at least being nice and the evenings being nice, it's been really lovely to be outdoors. But those big long chunks during the day, no thank you. I have been trying to use those, some of them at least, for writing. And as the weather cools and we get into the fall, work mode. We've already got the school bus going down my road in the mornings and in the afternoons. So it's signaling to my brain, okay, time to get back to work, time to get out of summer mode. So tell me, have you been working through the summer? Do you have a project that maybe you want to start in fall? I think fall is a great time to start a project as well. It's typically when I start working on anthology ideas, is in the fall. And then typically by the end of the year, I've put out through Altitude Press a call for submissions, and then stories start rolling in, and then I get to spend the winter cozy and reading stories that come in. So I'm going to miss that a little bit this year, but I just know that this year, this fall, is time for me to work on this manuscript that I really love, I really care about. It's nowhere near complete. As I said, I'm definitely at least a third of the way through, if not a little more, and it's going to be full novel length, not novella. So yeah, I'm excited about that, but I'll definitely miss working with other writers on their stories too. So anyway, that's the check-in for now. And tell me what you think. And I hope you're having a great summer and that you have a great rest of the summer. And I better go check and see how prepped I am for the vet to come out. All right, guys, I'll see you soon.